Good afternoon. If I can call this meeting to order, please. I am told that we have no public speakers. Is that correct? Okay. So if I can ask, please, for a motion on the approval of minutes.
Motion made.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And I will let Linda take the next couple of items, the work plan, the status report, and the other priorities that are going with that.
In terms of the work plan, the one change I wanted to bring to your attention is we had on the agenda discussion of project labor agreements at this meeting, but we're not ready to have that discussion, so that will be rescheduled. Otherwise, today's agenda is what we had put forth. I'm going to move into the commitment completion report. 76% of our projects were committed on or close to schedule, and page 2-3 describes commitments that did not fall in that category, with 2 new late ones since the last time we talked. In terms of budget, I wanted to call your attention to Mother Clara Hale Depot, which, as the write-up said, had a $63 million savings from what we had anticipated, so that's some more good news in the budget front. In terms of completions, which is on page 2-6, we, as with commitments, had 76% that were completed on or close to their goal, and the discussion of those in particular is also in the submission, and that would complete the commitment and completion report.
Questions, comments, anything on that? Dory?
I think there are 1 or 2 just incorrect numbers in here. Looking at page 2-3.
Yep.
The VHF radio system upgrade, I don't think the number is 295 anymore. Or could you check that? Because
We'll check
we
it.
did a procurement. I think it's substantially below that.
Okay, we'll check it, absolutely.
Thank you.
In terms of other program priorities, which was on the agenda, there are none that we'll be discussing this month, but I did want to spend just a minute talking about the red light report because we hadn't had a chance to talk about that the last time, and that's tab number 3. As you recollect, projects that are not on their face perceived as high risk, we're now doing this red light report where we look on schedule and cost index to see if there are any projects that are trending in a way that make us need to take a further look. So last month we had a red light report for stations. This month is B&T. We're building up to a full report come January. It'll be a quarterly report covering the entire program that had previously been part of the monitored program. When a project reaches the red light, you'll notice, and it's on page 3-2, we do a corresponding pink description, and the agency puts this together and indicates what change is happening and why and what they're doing about it. And then at the bottom, the independent engineer is asked to comment on the agency's assessment and indicate what action, if any, they think they need to take. So we didn't have a chance to talk about this last time. This is part of the new way of looking at projects that aren't seen as having a high-risk portfolio. So that's the end of my discussion.
Question?
In this case, the issue on the red light is the timing, not the price.
Correct.
If
It's
I
a
read,
three.
if I read it correctly.
You read it correctly. It's a 3-month delay.
Okay.
I would stop here for a second and just, excuse me, again comment on how much I appreciate both the clarity now of the status report and the clarity on what we're doing right here. One of the great difficulties of our capital program is the multitude of things that are going on, and every one of our agencies, literally hundreds of projects going on at the same time in different phases, design or construction activities. And I think we often, all of us, have a difficulty of grappling with the sum of what's there. The old joke to please forgive the length of the letter, I didn't have time to make it short. applies here as well. I think it takes more time and it takes more effort to do something that's shorter and has more clarity than it does to just dump out a bunch of information, frankly. And I think Linda and her team deserve a lot of credit, I think, for getting this into a place where it can be a usable document, where we can see what's going on and where we can get a snapshot both of the overall program and of some particular areas that we might want to be able to drill into. I'm sure that we'll continue to evolve this, but I think it's really on really the right step for what we should be doing.
Just a quick question. Is this a staff product or is this their independent engineer product, this traffic light? I see their name in the corner.
This, because we're evolving to this, so what we did is we had a lot of information that the independent engineers had put together, so this is being seeded by the information from the independent engineer moving forward. The agencies will be expected to keep this up to date. You know, we have project management reporting that should allow us to draw all this information out to fill in the charts, but the initial seeding of it is happening by the independent engineer. That's why in January it'll be a full report and then updated quarterly with the agencies updating their projects.
Okay, and are we still going to see any separate reports from the independent engineer?
You'll see separate reports on either contracts or projects that we consider to be high risk.
Okay.
And so you'll see, if you look through the agenda for CPOC, you'll see somewhere it says risk assessment for a particular contract. Or there's something that, a red light, where we say this requires us getting more involved, and then the IC will indicate that we're going to move into a monitoring of it. It's going to be a very iterative process. If there's something that you don't see on the agenda that you feel needs to be monitored, just let us know and we'll add it to the program.
Thank you.
Other thoughts? Okay. So moving on to the next item, which is the Jamaica Control Center. Obviously, we're all aware both of the difficulties that took place in August when we lost the tower due to the fire, and Long Island Railroad's heroic efforts to keep the railroad running through a difficult time. And more recently, what had been previously scheduled but was good timing, the follow-up over the last few weekends to be able to replace the signal equipment that dates from the turn of the century with a modern piece of signal equipment. As we've gone through this, I think one of the things that's been interesting as I've gone through it is how you see this fitting into an overall plan, not just individual pieces, but so that what happened the last few weekends, in one sense, is a response to the fire that took place because we were already working to that, but in another sense is really the part of preparing the railroad for what its 21st century operation will be with the investments they're otherwise making. And I thought it'd be helpful to let Kevin talk a little bit about that and take us through it, particularly since I've gotten to the true limit of my understanding of this issue. So,
thank you, Jay. Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Tomlinson, Chief Program Officer at the Long Island Railroad. Today's presentation will focus on our recent undertaking at Jamaica to illustrate how the railroad is using modern technology to improve our system's reliability, introduce cost savings and efficiencies, and prepare us for the future system improvements. Jamaica Interlocking is the heart of Long Island Railroad's operation. All of our trains, about 650 trains a day, travel through Jamaica with the exception of our Port Washington branch service. Jamaica Interlocking actually consists of 3 separate interlockings and is comprised of over 144 track switches and 163 signals. This complex configuration allows trains to have the accessibility to each of the 5 station platforms. Here in this schematic of the interlocking, you will see the 3 control towers, which are highlighted in green. All right, Hall to the east of Jamaica, Jamaica Station being here, Hall. J at Dutton to the west. Each tower controls an individual section of the Jamaica complex. Each line in this drawing represents an individual track, and a line connecting 2 lines represents a track switch or a crossover. The total length of the interlocking from west to east is approximately 2 miles long. Earlier this month, Long Island Railroad completed a key element of the modernization of Jamaica by upgrading its signal control system of the J, Hall, and Dutton interlockings. This project included the design and installation of microprocessor technology to supply supervisory control to our signal system. The budget for this project was $56 million, with $14 million for design and $42 million for construction. This project, which was similar to our other recent signal project upgrades at Queens and Valley interlockings, It replaced turn-of-the-century electromechanical signal control systems with modern computer systems. The actual cutover of the new interlocking supervisory control system took place over 2 weekends because of the need to perform over 1,000 FRA and Long Island Railroad safety tests. As a result, Long Island Railroad conducted extensive outreach to advise the public that we would be providing very limited train service during the cutover during both weekends. This project included the installation of 3 new huts. The photos here represent the new huts at both J and Hall. The photo on the right illustrates components inside the hut. Work also included the upgrade of the electrical support systems for the signal system and the installation of a new communication fiber ring system from the new huts to the new control room that was built. The main benefit is improved service reliability from this project. In the past, during service disruptions, decision-making communication between each of the separate towers was done back and forth over telephone lines or intercom systems. Now, with having a single point of control location, decision-making can be performed in person and operators can simultaneously modify operating plans efficiently and concurrently. An example would be that in 2009 we had about 221 incidents which caused delays at Jamaica Interlocking. This new system will allow us to minimize the impact of these delays by allowing a quicker and unified operational response to maintain our level of service. The new system also allows the railroad to improve train service reliability by supplying a backup control system that the old Model 14 machine did not provide, as well as allowing the railroad to react and recover faster to perturbed operating events. This benefit is illustrated by the Hall Tower fire this past August. This new computerized system would have minimized the overall delay from days to just hours because it now has a backup control processor, and the wiring of this system is protected with the latest in voltage surge protection devices. In addition, this project will allow the Long Island Railroad to achieve cost savings of $1 million per year by virtue of the centralization of train control of the 3 interlockings into the 1 location. The savings include a reduction in both overtime and in headcount. This project will also enable Long Island Railroad to progress the Jamaica Capacity Improvement, better known as JCI, project required to support ESA's opening day and our future service plans. Phase 1 of the JCI project will entail track realignments and a new switch installation to a new platform on the south side of Jamaica Station in advance of ESA's opening day. This new control system will allow the Long Island Railroad to add the track switches by software modifications rather than cumbersome physical changes to the 2 obsolete mechanical boxes full of interconnected levers. After ESA's opening day, a second phase of JCI will be required to complete the full Jamaica reconfiguration to enable a faster operating speeds, eliminating therefore the Jamaica crawl, as well as more train capacity needed for future growth. This drawing shows the proposed reconfiguration of Jamaica Interlocking for Phase 1. The red lines reflect the new reconfigured tracks on the south side of the interlocking with new switches in order for the railroad to allow to build a new platform on the south side for our future Brooklyn Scoot service. You'll also see some additional track enhancements to the east and to the west, which gives the railroad the required flexibility for our service when the ESA operating plan goes into effect, and will also permit initial JCI Phase 2 elements to take place. In addition, the Jamaica Signal Modernization Project, as well as other past and future signal projects, will allow us to move a step closer to our centralized train control, better known as CTC objective, which is namely to remotely control all of Long Island Railroad's operations from Howard Interlocking all the way in the west to the east end of Long Island Railroad at 1 location. It is the railroad's intention to modernize its operation with CTC because it will provide operational improvements in the management of all our train movement, our incident response, and our ability for critical decision-making. CTC will also enable the Long Island Railroad to gain efficiencies in staffing, resulting in improved customer service and in savings. Funding will be required over the upcoming capital programs to continue with the upgrade of our signal systems, and the plan needs to match the available funding levels. In this slide are highlighted elements that reflect past improvements where we have updated our vital field interface with microprocessor upgrades, which are the necessary steps towards the migration of CTC. We are in the process of refining our CTC plan and schedule. However, within the past few months, two other very important CTC milestones were achieved at the railroad. A new power SCADA system was cut over, and the design for the centralized train control location that will house full CTC implementation was completed this past August. The top of the slide shows the benefits of our recent project. Our next step is first to progress the completion of Jamaica reconfiguration plan, initiate design, followed by phase 1 construction activities to establish an additional platform for our Brooklyn Scoot service, and 2, to refine the strategy for the master plan of CTC. That's all. I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Please don't say this place doesn't love you. We named an interlocking after you. Except the tower is going, though, right? The tower is going. I noticed there's a little picture of inside the J hut, which is what some of us call your
I
office.
think we're upgrading the hut.
But the,
I think that's
Okay, good. Both huts, I hope. When do we expect to have CTC for the Long Island Railroad?
Well,
What's the end date?
We have to reforecast our plan right now based upon the capital program and future funding. But the plan was to be somewhere in about 2020 to have it full up and running. Again, it will be dependent upon the funding. That slide I had up there before showed the yellow highlights. Those was completed. The unhighlighted areas are areas that we still need to address. They are identified in our future capital programs, again, based upon the funding that's available.
Kevin, why, and maybe this addresses that, but why do trains that don't stop between Jamaica and Woodside, you know, some that just go to Woodside and then some that go nonstop to Penn Station, why are they on the local track running through Kew Gardens and Forest Hills?
Again, we utilize all three tracks in the morning rush hour. We utilize all three tracks. There's 4 tracks between Jamaica and Penn. We utilize all three of them for westbound service and 1 for eastbound service. We do send express trains on the outside tracks that are station track. We do that. Most of the trains there do stop. But again, in order to meet our throughput and our requirements, sometimes we do send an express train on an exterior track, which will be a station track.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem like the safest thing to do if you have the other track available.
Believe me, I don't know if there's a window open on any of those 3 tracks in the morning rush to say that
I'm talking off-peak times now.
In off-peak? In off-peak times?
Yeah.
Again, it could be just something to do with the operation that's going on. There may be other work going on within the interlocking that requires us to shift things to the outside. It may not be customary, but, you know, it's not something that we would not be prohibited from doing.
Thank you.
No problem.
Other questions? Kevin, as you look at this project, I mean, the project cost is $56 million, and clearly there's a small amount of operating savings, but we would never undertake a $56 million project to get $1 million of operating savings over there. There's also clearly the potential that it will link into a much longer plan that we have and ultimately needs to be funded, but as you pointed out, that's a period that's at least a decade away from where we are at the moment. The part that I'm trying to put my arms around somewhat more clearly is actually the part in which you say we've had 220 delays in Jamaica. If I can find the page, I'm sorry, but I think it's page 7. You had 221 delays at Jamaica in 2009, and guessing and picking up off the points that you just made in response to Andrew's question, each of those delays at Jamaica then has resultant carry-on effects west or east, as the case might be. How do we seek to put our arms around this and understanding this in a somewhat different way? How can we understand what that's meant either in terms of the on-time performance of the railroad? How can we understand what it's meant in dollars and cents to customers if we value their time and what the price of that delay has been? And to what extent should we expect that the completion of this project, following on from the work that was otherwise done at Jay and Dunton, is that the other one? Jay
Yes.
and Dunton, eliminates that set of delays that we've seen or eliminates some portion of that set of delays that we've seen at Jamaica? How should we understand that?
Well, I think I can't tell you numerically how, if you're saying I'm going to say 50% delays, but we looked at the calculations in 2009. We had 220 signal-relayed delays in the interlocking. We looked at it this way, that the way the place operates prior to 2 weeks ago was there was a lot of handoff back and forth, a lot of time and effort to reroute trains and to keep the operation going as fast as possible and still trying to communicate with two other people on the outside. By having this all in one location, our feeling is that the communication is right in front. One person's making a decision. Everyone can see everything in front of them. Previously in the tower, all you saw was your interlocking. You didn't know what was going on east or west of you. You saw the lines coming in. You didn't know what was happening east or west, depending where you are. You're able to see everything now, so it's a unified approach. You're able to anticipate things when a problem does arise. You're able to see how what the person next to you is doing, and almost like jump the step. In fact, beat it. So we feel that there could be a savings in time for these delays, 221. These delays range in anywhere from minutes to a few minutes to actually, I should say they weren't delays, they were instants, to a few delays. We're hoping to maybe decrease it by half. It's really the time that the incident may happen out in the field, it may be a bad signal wire or whatever, but we're trying to say is the time to recover, we believe, will be faster by not having the back and forth between the operators. I have a train down in 8th Station, I may have an emergency, someone that needs medical help. You can anticipate that, and the other towers be able to react quicker. I think that maybe in a year or two, we'll be able to maybe better quantify the improvements for this latest project.
So you led to actually the second part of my question, which I appreciate. Thank you. We're now putting out, I think, an unprecedented amount of information in regard to the services, including the historical information about how our services have run over the preceding months. I think one of the things that we really need to do, and whether it's done at the Railroad Committee or whether it's done here, I'm not sure which place, but what we really need to do in looking at this project is to be taking it from the perspective of what it really is meant to the customer. In other words, do we still see 221 delays through Jamaica as we get, a year on from now? Have we just replaced one type of delay with another type of delay? Mm-hmm. Or do we see, as you said, a smaller number of delays, a faster recovery of those delays, whatever might be the case? But how do we turn it? How do we turn it into the type of customer outcome that I think we're searching for here, right? This committee is charged with talking about this as a capital project. In that regard, I think we should congratulate you and the railroad for getting the work done over the weekends, the past month when you had the railroad and getting that work done. Clearly, that was a disbenefit to our customers, but it was in the interest of getting something done, and you got it done. I think this committee congratulates you on that piece of work. But I think the broader question that we have as a board is really about how these capital projects actually relate to the customer outcome that we're able to create. And I think we need to think about how we use a project like this to be able to demonstrate what that outcome has been, and to be able to see it, hopefully, in our statistics as we go forth into 2011. And I would certainly ask that we try and do it, as I said, either here or maybe even more appropriately at the Rail Committee, which I think is probably the right place to be drawing some of those connections that are taking place.
This relates to some of the new reports that we've just instituted with the help of the Long Island Commuter Council in getting the length of the delays, and the way it impacts customers, not just the fact that it's either late or not late, but that it's how many minutes is late, how is that really been felt by the customer. And so, trying to isolate it back to something like this interlocking, I think, is maybe another project, but we're trying to get at it. And I think it's great that we're doing that.
So, Kevin, do you have a timeline that you can give us when various aspects of this are being put into effect, and when, these, for instance, 221 delays in 2009, hopefully it'll be less in 2010, but when will the customer start to see the benefits of this? I mean, we don't have to wait for East Side Access, right, for this, obviously.
Well, no, but this project itself replaced a big portion of this was it replaced an integrated system that we really couldn't maintain. There was no manufacturer if any parts broken, So it moved us to the next step in terms of improving Jamaica capacity for East Side Access. Will definitely help us in terms of our operation by moving the Brooklyn's shuttle service, scoot service to the south, and open up our operation right now. Atlantic branch trains. We have we have meets in Jamaica. Our Atlantic branch service bisects the front of the bow of our trains trying to get to the west of to Penn Station. So by including this project now into our project, we're able to meet East Side Access opening, gets the scoot to the south, and
Right,
puts
but
us...
that's not happening for years,
2000,
correct?
but I'm just saying that's a benefit to us. The immediate benefit, though, right now is that I think you'll see the recovery, or maybe there could be an incident in Jamaica which will have no delay to a train, where in the past it may have, because we're able to respond sooner. But
Besides the
So that would be the
movement of the Brooklyn Scoot service
Right.
to the south, this will hopefully mean smoother transition for trains through Jamaica, correct? Even before that happens.
Yes, I would say yes. I mean, I would say yes. I think our service is pretty good now. It should be even more seamless, having all three located in one.
Thanks.
And again, I think what you're hearing from myself and perhaps from other members of the board is a desire to get past somewhat of the anecdotal story of that, to be able to back that up in a way that shows up through. And again, I'm not sure what the right way is, so don't take me as defining it precisely.
Right.
But I'd like to know that we have some way of backing it up in a more analytical way, and being able to show people that even for projects that you have a long path, both East Side Access and the JTC, to be able to do, that there's immediate benefits that customers are achieving as well. That would be a tremendous part of this story, I think, if we could find a way to be able to articulate that.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much. And again, I think congratulations to the team of people at Long Island Railroad that worked so hard over the 2 weekends to be able to do the cutover. This is no easy task by any stretch of the imagination. Bridges and Tunnels, Mr. Spiro. You flying solo, Don? Or...
All right. Thank you very much. I'm Don Spiro. I'm the Chief Financial Officer with MTA Bridges and Tunnels, and Joe Keane, who most of you know, is to my left, and Bob Redding to Joe's left. Joe's the Chief Engineer. Bob is overseeing the AET project at the Henry Hudson Bridge. The primary objective today for us is to talk about the positive effect that we believe all electronic tolling will have on our capital program moving forward. Before we get into the discussion of that, I just want to briefly go over with you what's happening with AET today, and also be clear about what it means, because even in our own agency, it can sometimes be confusing or misunderstood. AET is currently operational in several locations, as the slide says, in the United States and internationally, including Dallas, Denver, Sydney, Melbourne, and Toronto. I think even more importantly than that, however, it's being planned or studied in dozens of other locations, including in this area the Port Authority and the South Jersey Turnpike Authority, which runs the Atlantic City Expressway. In some ways, it's kind of where Easy Pass was in the late 80s, early 90s. In an eight.
Is this actually in operation on the turnpike, like exit 16, coming off the north end?
Well, they haven't put it in place yet. They're planning it. This is the South Jersey Turnpike. I think you're talking about open road tolling, which is a little different on the New Jersey Turnpike, New Jersey Turnpike. Yeah, that's not an AET. That is an open road tolling Easy Pass system, which is a little different. So, let me just maybe I'll explain it in a second. In an Easy Pass in an AET system, both Easy Pass and video are accepted in all lanes. There's no cash collection at all. License plates of vehicles without Easy Pass are identified via cameras, and a bill is sent for the payment of the toll. And that's very different right now than what the Turnpike has. It's not in existence in this region. Payment for the toll from people who don't have Easy Pass is accepted via phone, mail, internet, or a payment agent. And one of the advantages for customers is that the number of toll lanes are reduced significantly because cash and Easy Pass motorists no longer need to be separated, so traffic flow and throughput improves. As you all know, a decision was made by the chairman about a year ago to begin an AET pilot project at the Henry Hudson Bridge. On the next slide, in a second, we'll give you a quick update on what's happening there. And then we want to talk about, as I said, the real strategic importance of AET for a capital program, particularly as it relates to the replacement of of toll plazas, and then we'll talk specifically about what's going on at the RFK Bridge, which is really sort of our first dip into the water into sort of a post-Henry Hudson pilot world. So, next slide. The Henry Hudson is on schedule to go gateless in January 2011, about less than 2 months from now, we hope. That'll be a facility. At that point, it'll be very similar to the Port Authority facilities today. They'll still have cash collection. It'll still have cash collection, but it will also have no gates on the Easy Pass lanes. About a year later is when we expect to begin all electronic tolling, which is, as I said, no cash collection. This will be an in-lane AET system, so it will have certain lanes widened, but there'll still be the islands. We chose the Hudson for the pilot due to the reduced risk at this facility. The parkway is for passenger vehicles only. There's no trucks, so there's no complicated classification system that we need to test right away. It's a relatively small share of the authority's revenue, although it actually has higher traffic than the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. It has less revenue because of the lower toll, and it also has a very high Easy Pass market share, 85%, one of our highest. So it makes it easier to analyze the non-Easy Pass traffic that we'll be seeing there. Slide 3 is sort of moving beyond the Henry Hudson and sort of talking about trying to get in what the immediate future is for us, or beyond the immediate future, which is really kind of the question for this committee. How does it affect the capital program? I think one of the most important pieces of information that we want to communicate to you today is that all of our toll plazas need to be replaced over the next 15 years or so. Most date back to the original construction of the facilities. Their replacements are all part of our facility master plans to keep each bridge and tunnel structurally sound and in a state of good repair. AET provides us with an extraordinary opportunity to replace these plazas for a lot less money than would be the case if we replaced them in kind with current toll collection technology, with our current toll collection system. If a successful AET can really transform our agency, not just for the public traveling on our bridges and tunnels, but also in terms of how we go about rebuilding and investing in our toll plazas. There are different ways to build an AET system. As I said, we're doing an in-lane system at the Henry Hudson Bridge. Another way to do it is with overhead gantries and no islands. But no matter how you do it, the costs are lower than they would be for a traditional toll plaza. This is because the plaza itself can be smaller. There's simply not as much pavement to replace, significantly reducing the cost. The civil infrastructure needs associated with the toll plaza are significantly reduced, and also constructability is enhanced. Because traffic can move with a different configuration. More lanes can be taken out of service as you're doing the construction, and that significantly reduces the duration and the cost of the project. So how do we know that we can actually reduce costs? And I guess what we want to say here is we're basically putting our money where our mouth is in this capital program with the RFK Bronx Toll Plaza reconstruction project. This toll plaza goes back to the original construction of the bridge. This replacement is part of the 30-year reconstruction program for the entire RFK Bridge complex. It began in the early 90s. It will continue into the 20 to 24 capital program. Construction on this toll plaza is scheduled for 2013. We can't defer it because it'll screw everything else up in the out years. Prior to the decision to start the Henry Hudson pilot, we plan to replace and widen the Bronx Toll Plaza structure with traditional gated toll lanes. And widening the plaza was necessary in order to maintain the capacity of the bridge during construction. Otherwise, we would have had very large and unacceptable backups while we were doing this construction. After the Henry Hudson decision was made, however, our engineers took a fresh look at the proposed design and developed a very different strategy. What we're doing for this project is we're assuming gateless, not AET toll collection at this time, but we're assuming gateless toll collection in the Easy Pass lanes, kind of phase 1 of the Henry Hudson pilot that will go into effect in January. So we're assuming gateless during construction, and we believe we can gain substantial benefits by doing that. The throughput will increase. That will reduce the plaza footprint. In the original design, The need to widen the plaza would have necessitated the elimination of the current service buildings now adjacent to the roadway. Basically, would have had to add lanes that would have disrupted that building or plowed right through it. In the gateless mode, because the throughput will be greater, and the service building can remain where it is, and that is one of the big drivers of this reduced cost for this project. There's also, as I alluded to earlier, just in general, there's fewer construction stages by doing it this way. The duration of the job will be reduced significantly, another large savings. And all told, the plan reduces the cost that we originally had for this project by over $200 million. We incorporated those savings into the capital plan that we resubmitted earlier this year. And I think just as important, or at least almost as important possibly as the savings, is that the plan that we are putting in place for this plaza with the gateless tolling prepares us for possible AET implementation. The original design would have been built on a scale that is far beyond what would be necessary in an AET plaza. It would just been way too big for that type of system. But by moving forward as we are building it to scale, and it will be the appropriate design should we decide to go AET at that plaza as well. If we do go AET at that plaza, we would save a little bit of money beyond the gateless, most likely beyond the gateless mode, but the real savings are going to gateless, not from going from the original design to gateless, not from gateless to AET in this case. The final slide is really just a quick summary of where we believe we're headed. We are convinced that the Henry Hudson pilot will allow us to gain experience in this new technology. We're deliberately doing it with reduced risk, and we can hopefully apply those lessons to future facilities that might be a little more complicated. We'll be working to apply the same strategy that we're undertaking at the RFK to future toll plaza projects. As I said, every toll plaza will be replaced over the next 15 years or so. And we think this strategy will lead to savings in future capital programs, both because of the constructability issues and also because of not having to replace certain toll plaza infrastructure associated with these toll plaza reconstructions. So any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Questions, comments, thoughts?
When was the RFK project
Completion, I believe it's a 4-year project. Construction is supposed to begin in 2013. It's a 4-year project.
Just the Bronx.
The Bronx Plaza.
Mitch?
So at the moment, obviously, we are moving forward without having an experiment. So we're planning under the assumption the Henry Hudson is going to work, which we all hope the Henry Hudson is going to
Well,
work.
I would say up to a point, yes.
Right.
We're assuming gateless for the RFK. We're
Right.
not assuming AET. And I think we're setting ourselves up for AET, but if for some reason AET doesn't seem to be the way to go, we are still capturing that $200 million savings.
That was my
Right.
point, is that we can going from gateless to AET is significantly less than going from toll booths to gateless. That's the point you're making, from a construction savings perspective.
At the RFK, at this
At the
particular
RFK.
Bronx, at this whole plaza at the RFK.
Right, at the RFK.
That's right.
Because in that way, I think the hope would be that we could get to gantry layered tolling, but we don't know that yet. That's the point.
Right. We have a lot of work to do to get to that decision, but yes,
Right.
we are certainly, that was one of the things we'll be looking at.
Okay.
Jim?
One of the things, and if this has been covered by this committee earlier, I apologize, but one of the things that had been raised quite a few years ago in speaking with earlier management was the high level of collectability that we currently have using the current system. It was 99.9%
Right.
toll collections, and just the round numbers. Do you have any indicators of whether that'll be significantly depreciated?
Well, I think it's fair to say we won't be able to collect at 99.99% anymore once the gates are removed and we go to AET, but I can't give you any kind of number right now. That's really one of the reasons why we're doing the pilot at the Henry Hudson. We want to see how we do in terms of collectability.
In terms of this discussion, one of the things that I've certainly encouraged to the Bridges and Tunnels team is that we focus mainly on the capital question here, because I think that the question that you're raising is exactly the question that the Bridge and Tunnels Committee has been focusing on very much. I do think it's certainly a valid question, and it is exactly one of the things that we have to be testing in this process. But in the interest of all the members, I think segmenting parts of this, I think is something we should be thinking about. I think we're hesitant to sort of put a finger in the air, and I think we'd rather test it and see. And I think part of what you're going to find here, by the way, is that you'll find that some of that has to do with business rules and processes, and we'll have to go through a process of adjusting and iterating some of that as we go through the process. And I think I know Jimmy and the team at Bridges and Tunnels, and I've been meeting regularly on this, is well aware of the fact that we probably won't get it all right on day one, but we need to we need to leave ourselves a path to be able to try some things and be able to evaluate and see what works, which is why I think the word pilot is very important here. It is real. It's a real pilot. There's stuff we have to learn from this. We can't jeopardize the revenue stream in going forward with this.
But being willing to do that is, I think, somewhat of a break with past practice, too, and that's a good break. Just say, we'll take a chance and try to move out on that technology spectrum.
Yes, and I think this is a big change from past practice. There's no question about that. And I'm going to speak to that in 1 second. But, Susan, did you have something that...
No, my question's answered, but I do think this is the way to go. Pleased to see it's good.
I mean, if you think about this is potentially one of the most important strategic initiatives that we have going right now in the company. And I often found myself talking about it in the context of what might happen in the toll collection process. I think absolutely fair in the way that Jim is talking about this right now. I sometimes missed, when I was doing that, the capital side of this. And it wasn't until I had the discussion with Jimmy and the team that I began to realize what the implications of this were. And when you see, one of the things that people keep saying to us is, we said we reduced the size of our capital program by $2 billion, and we took out real things, and we didn't just kick the can down the road. This is a great example of this. This is actually achieving our objectives for $200 million less than it would have cost us before. And I think that is such a powerful part of the message of what we're trying to do. And again, if this works, the ability both to be able to have a more efficient means of collecting tolls, to have a more environmentally friendly means of collecting tolls, and to be able to reduce our capital projects, if we extrapolate from this example, perhaps by a very sizable amount of money, is really a win-win-win type situation. Now, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, because I think we need to prove that we can do it and protect the revenue stream. But I think the incentives are so well placed for this that I'm very pleased to see the effort that B&T and the whole team has put into being ready to make this a success. And it does have enormous implications, I think, for this organization, and is really on an order of magnitude similar, and Don said this at the beginning, similar to those of us who were around in the mid-1980s when we were starting to work on EasyPass and realized what that could be. I would also remind people, by the way, that EasyPass was not an implementation without bumps in the road as well. We went through some difficult times on EasyPass, and we had to re-educate customers, and we had to do other things. And but I think today we look at it, and many people look at it as it's the best thing since sliced bread, and I tend to be in that category. But you didn't get there all in one step, and I think we'll have to keep that patience in mind as we go to implement this process. But I think it's very, very exciting. I think it's a great example of how we have really worked to reduce capital costs. I think that part of it for this committee, I think, is hugely important for what we're doing right now. Anything that I've missed? Jimmy, anything I missed from your perspective? Okay.
Can I just make one point?
Sure.
The $200 million that we're saving at the RFK, this is my cautious hat on, is that, a big part of that is the service building, not having to replace the service building. So it's a little unique in terms of
fair
of the toll
enough.
plaza.
No, Don, I think that's fair enough, and I think you're right to say we should not be extrapolating from that across all of our facilities.
Right.
But we may well find that if we have success here, we reevaluate some of the timing of some things we do, because it may be financially beneficial to do things in a different way. Again, that's in front of us, and again, we shouldn't put that cart before the horse. Oh, I think all of it is any one of us who's watched the cash lanes tie up the throughput on the bridge or tunnel, knows how that happens. And I think, particularly on weekends, I think B&T struggles in many of its facilities because of the mix of traffic that's there. Well, we've taken other steps to try to help that as well. So that they are all pointed in the same direction. Thank you very much. Is there any water in that thing? It's Jim. The last topic for today, I think actually comes out of some experience that this committee had and the board had prior to my arriving, which had to do with the startup around the the South Ferry station and some of the issues that came out of that. I think one of the things that we as a committee should be looking toward is the follow-up and the lessons learned, and to ensure that what came out of some of that is actually finding its way into things that we might be able to improve for the future. And that's the point of this study, this work, which is on commissioning, and I'll turn it to Ron and Uday. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. So this presentation is not about the small business mentoring program. In fact, it's the other end of the spectrum. Commissioning is the process by which systems are tested and accepted. It requires early and full definition and participation of all stakeholders. Commissioning, in fact, is the fourth phase of construction. If we consider design, procurement, construction, and commissioning, it's the fourth phase of a project, and it's a very significant project. As an example, in 1980, I was responsible for commissioning a $500 million petrochemical complex. It took 18 months to commission the project. And we had hundreds of systems and subsystems, and it required everyone involved in the process. So we had to break down silos and get everybody to work together as a team. Essentially, this is an MTA-wide focus, because not only does it apply to the mega projects, but certainly applies to all projects where we have mechanical and electrical systems. Give an example, back in 2007, where we have elevators and escalator, a lot of those projects were in fact late because we wound up pushing these projects, slipped to the end of the year, and we didn't have the resources to test and accept them by the end of the year. So it really helps us also focus on our internal resources and how we apply our folks to the successful commissioning. As Jason said, this presentation leans heavily on the lessons learned from South Ferry because of the complexity. It not only costs us more time and more money, but in fact overtaxed resources. We couldn't keep up with South Ferry, let alone the other projects that were going on at the same time that needed the same resources. So it's extremely important, however, in this capital plan, because in this plan, with $2 billion worth of systems projects in New York City Transit and probably over $1 billion in the mega projects, it's extremely important that we plan the projects, identify the resources, and not compete internally, let alone externally. With that, I'd like to turn over to Uday Durg, who's been instrumental in moving the MTACC process forward.
Good afternoon. So I learned a lot of lessons. A lot of lessons on South Ferry in terms of identifying complex systems. When I say complex, it means integration of complex systems in terms of fire alarm systems, building management systems. There are a lot of systems that we didn't plan for early in the part of the project. So when I mean integration, I'm talking about if there's a fire on the platform in a small way. If there's a fire on the platform, what happens? What fans get turned on? What fans get turned off? What emergency systems gets on? What pressurized systems get done in terms of stairwells? How we get people out safely on the platform? So all these things that we talk about integration is very important to define the early part of the project. Second, it is important to define the risks in terms of cost and schedule. You want to make a list of those things. And the third most important thing is to communicate our acceptance criteria to the contractors. One of the things we did at South Ferry, one of the things that we did not do at South Ferry was we didn't communicate how we're going to get the acceptance of escalators. We had 6 escalators on South Ferry. The contractor wanted us to test 2 escalators at a time. We didn't have the resources to test those escalators. So we had to test 1 at a time. It's not just communicating that resource, it's also communicating the resource in terms of people coming from other places all over the country. People come from manufacturers to test these escalators. So it's important to coordinate and communicate that information to the contractor. So this way, he schedules them in an intelligent way. And most importantly, like Ron was saying, is to coordinate resources in-house. It's not just my project that's important. There are other projects in the system, and you need to coordinate all those resources for the project. And one of the things that we did not do well at South Ferry was training. We didn't anticipate that we had to train almost 600 people, train conductors at this new station. And that was not, the schedule was not properly timed for. So that's why we missed some of the schedule requirements on the project. So how did we accomplish this at Fulton Street? One of the things we did at Fulton was so the lessons we learned and the benefits we're going to get at Fulton is, of course, is to minimize time delays, to ensure that we don't have major change orders in terms of commissioning, and also to plan effectively the user resources, and also to deliver what we call a satisfied customer, a full functionality project for the benefit of the customer. So how did we accomplish this at Fulton Street? The first and most important that we did was we identified a team consisting of people who understand commissioning very well in terms of the MTA personnel, in terms of the user departments, in terms of people who are going to accept systems, manufacturers within the industry. We put them together and we met every single week. We met weekly with the team to identify systems, identify interface issues, identify commissioning and of each activities, and identifying the long lead items. Once we had done this, we established durations, sequence, logic, and then we developed what we call as integrated construction schedule. Once we had developed the integrated schedule, we developed specifications. We had a specification, the contract, that defines exactly how we're going to accept the project in terms of the end product.
Okay. So where are we going with this? Basically, we began to create an all-agency commissioning guideline. We're well along with it. I was hoping to tell you we'd be finished with it now, but we're forecasting the end of the year because of holidays. This will apply to all complex projects, as I said, especially the mega projects. The results will be assessed by future budget and schedule performance. We can't promise you immediate satisfaction or immediate results, but we will report to you the success of the process. Since UDA's, in terms of the mega projects, is the first comprehensive projects that have commissioning procedures as part of the commissioning schedules, duration, everything we talked about as part of the contract specification, we'll begin to see results in sometime around 2012 to 13 when we begin to commission the Fulton Street Transit Center component projects. We can say right now we're satisfied with the planning. The contractor has accepted the information that was in the contract specs, understands them, has in fact provided that in the baseline schedule, and we want to move forward from there.
Comments, questions? Doreen?
A couple of things. When I think about the South Ferry project and the things that plagued it, one of them was water and grouting. And were there lessons learned other than it would be optimal not to build a subway station in a pond, basically, but beyond that, are there any lessons learned about the back and forth that we had with the contractor over grouting? Because it does seem to be a problem in all of our subway systems, water incursion.
That's important. One of the things, of course, if you look at Fulton Street, I mean, you didn't have a chance to travel to look at the Fulton Street project itself, and you looked at the underpinning of the Corbin, but in look of the Dayston underpass, in look of the AC construction that's ongoing right now, we use what you call formless construction. We used, whereas in South Ferry we used the same waterproofing system whether we use it at South Ferry or Fulton. But the way we did the waterproofing here was a formless, penetration-less forms that we used to ensure there's no penetrations of this new fireproofing that the new waterproofing that we're installing at Fulton. So there's absolutely no leakage at Fulton Street. So we learned the lesson that we need to make sure that we use penetration-less forms to ensure that we have no leaks inside the stations.
What is a penetration-less form? Is that like no seams or something?
No,
or
for
what is it?
example, if you look at the pre-proof that we installed at South Ferry, we had, in order to attach in order to pour a 20-foot thick wall, you have to use what you call penetrations to hold the forms together. So here we use, penetration-less forms. That is, that prevents any penetrations of the anchor bolts through the waterproofing.
And I take it as an unsaid part of this presentation is that we have not adequately commissioned the mega projects. Would you say that the commissioning or lack thereof of Second Avenue subway and East Side access may be contributing to some of the issues that we're encountering with some of those projects now?
Correct.
I guess I took it slightly differently than because, so let me make sure I understand this. If we do not change the practice that we've been following, then we are likely to have problems that will come up in the mega projects, and those problems will not be apparent to us until the end of the project. So I think that the point about this is to recognize some of those issues earlier on in the process when you can take action to be able to deal with them without them extending the deadline at the end. Am I saying that correctly?
I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question. I apologize.
I hope it's not the answer you got. So that's why.
What we're doing is, Uday, in terms of the mega project, Uday was the first to begin on Fulton Street, and as I said to you, it's already in the specs. It's already moving forward. We are, in fact, now preparing the same level of commissioning schedules for Second Avenue Subway, 7 West, and East Side Access. And it's a long process, as Uday mentioned to you. So he's ahead of the curve, but we are doing the same process to all of these programs. And then the final step, as I said to you before, is once we've done this, it's to bring it back to the user, and then the user can basically match all these schedules up and say, oh, gee, during this period I need 20 people. I don't have 20 people. So it's a resource tool. So yeah, we have to get these projects on the same basis, same plan, so we can effectively use the information.
Right. The point that I just wanted to add is, so there's still the systems work, as you know, has not yet actually occurred on the large project. So by doing this now, that's the whole point, and that's why we wanted you all to know. It's as that systems work goes in, you're fully prepared to accept it at the back end. So it's making sure that the agency understands fully the number of resources that will need to be applied to do the testing and the acceptance, has the training they need in time to do the testing and acceptance, so that it doesn't, as Jay said, hit you at the backside because now you're ready to test and accept and, oh, I needed 30 people. I didn't know. You know in advance and you're prepared.
Susan, you had your hand. I'm sorry.
I see this as part of our ongoing effort to make us a less bipolar agency. We tend to think in these two major silos of construction and operations. And it doesn't work that way because when construction is finished with their deadline, it doesn't mean operations can put it into service. There's always a gap there that we haven't always acknowledged very effectively. I think it's incredibly timely to have this happen now because most of our major commissions that we've seen some rocky starts on have been one agency dealing with taking over one piece of construction. And East Side Access is going to be several different agencies, several different types of construction, all coming together at the same time, to the extent that we can do that. So it's a much more difficult commissioning, and this is really a very necessary step. And it's just part of integrating the construction that we do into the operations that we do so that everything serves the common goal. And I'm really pleased to see it happen. It's not very sexy compared to building something, but it's just as important.
I like to just say Ray Schaefer reminded me that MTA CC, in fact, has weekly meetings where they get all the different program areas together and discuss, commonalities and things of that nature. to ensure they're all, in fact, putting a plan together in the same fashion so that it can be used for the purposes that I mentioned. So things
Well,
are,
one of the
you know,
most important thing is communicating these complex systems to the people who are going to accept it. If you want to make, the problem is if you're going to accept it at the tail end of the job, it becomes difficult for people who have to maintain it at the tail end to figure out what exactly the system is. By meeting with them regularly and communicating what exactly the systems are, it just benefits acceptance much easier and much quicker at the end of this project.
Can I add something? It really is a two-way street, because it's very important that capital construction listen to operations about what they need, so that it's not
Plans.
handing something off and saying, here you go, guys, make it run. It really has to be a system where the operations people are saying, we're going to need this. No, that won't work for us. And the construction people say, well, you know, this, it's got to work like a hand in glove. And the fact that, you know, this is an ongoing effort right now is just very appropriate and a very good thing. And I'm sure it will work very nicely.
The committee saw another example of this, actually, last month or the month before, I can't remember which one it was, when Amy Linden came in and was talking about the work she's doing on the new smart card. And she was talking about the work that she's doing, I mean, picking up very much on Susan's point, with all the operating functions that have to work around this in the way that we think about our revenue stream and protect it and the whole process of being able to do it. And in fact, the point that she's making is she's doing really an unprecedented amount of work up front in order to avoid having to redo the systems work when you get to the back end, when people wake up and say, gee, it really can't work like that, right? I mean, one of the things that this is really forcing us to do is to deal, hopefully forcing us to do, is to deal with some of those issues in the front end of the process rather than the back end of the process, where I think it has much greater impacts both in terms of budget and in terms of time, right? Now, it needs to be proven that we're doing that. I mean, this is, or at least the ship is pointed the right way now. That's part of it, but we still got to sail it there. So that's still a bit of a question that we have to go through. Jim, I'm sorry.
Thank you. It also, just referring back to some other things that we discussed at this committee and outside of this committee, may make the agency more easier to deal with from the standpoint of contractors. They will be able to sort of know where they stand earlier in the process, not be playing a huge catch-up game and get into a lot of finger-pointing at the end of a project. You're there earlier.
Okay. I'm going to draw this meeting, if I can, to a close. Sure.
One quick housekeeping, not a mega project. Councilman Ignazio asked me.
You want to put your microphone on?
Councilman Ignazio asked me to just inquire about the status, and I don't expect an answer here today, but if somebody could get back to him and myself on the Arthur Kill Road station, security cameras, and a call box system. And then also, I'm still waiting for an answer on the Molinaro money.
Charleston Depot,
Yes.
the street, yeah.
Tom was getting back to you on that, but
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. And if I can use this committee to give one very positive note, since I see Fred sitting in the back, I think I saw the elevators working at 96th Street this morning. Did I not, Fred? Congratulations. So, I think that's it's been a long time. It's a tremendous community achievement, and I think one of the things that perhaps we need to do as a committee is to actually celebrate our achievements as well as pound ourselves sometimes for what some of the difficulties are. Congratulations, Fred. It's a great project.
Are we approving the charter, the committee charter?
I don't know.
yeah, we
Okay.
brought it
Didn't we
last
bring
time
it- I
with
thought we
the
brought it- I thought we
amendments,
brought it
and I
last time.
thought we had.
Yeah. well, I think we
Last
brought it when
committee
we were-
meeting, we brought it. I pointed out that the only changes were, and that we were expanding it to cover, the management of the program and the strategic direction of the program, and everybody voted at that time and said they were fine with it. So, but if you, Lamont, do you need another? Okay.
And we will be moving to the corporate governance meeting now, to the governance committee meeting now to be able to finish that effort. Okay, thank you very much. I think we're adjourned. Thank you. I thought I'd steal your thunder.